My name is Bethany Booth, and I'm 28 years old. My mother showed up to my wedding wearing ivory. The moment my cousin whispered, "Is she seriously wearing white?" She turned to 300 guests, smiled sweetly, and said loud and clear, "It's just cream, darling. Someone has to look like the actual bride today." I didn't flinch. I'm a licensed therapist. I've spent 12 years helping women escape narcissistic mothers, while completely blind to the one who raised me. During our first dance, she snatched the mic from the DJ. "A surprise from the mother of the bride," she announced with pride. My husband leaned in close, his voice low and steady. "Don't look at her. Look at the back wall." 300 heads turned at once, and what they saw on that wall didn't just expose her, it shattered everything I thought I knew about my life, and proved the marriage I believed would finally free me had been part of her plan all along. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you all are. But I need to go back. Because what happened at my wedding didn't start that night. It started 12 years earlier in my childhood bedroom, with a camera I didn't know was still recording. I was 16. My father had walked out a decade before, vanished the way men sometimes do when the weight of a woman like my mother becomes too much to carry quietly. She brought him up every chance she got. Not to mourn, to measure. Every man I ever mentioned was held against his ghost, and everyone came up short. That night, I was sitting on my bed, mascara streaked on my pillowcase, upset over a boy who'd broken up with me during fourth period lunch. My mother appeared in the doorway with her phone, the camera already open. She did this constantly. Birthdays, tantrums, fevers, recitals. She documented everything. At the time, I thought it was love. Now I understand it was inventory. She sat beside me, pulled me close. "You'd never leave me the way he did," she said. Not quite a question. More like a line she was feeding me, waiting for me to deliver it back. "I'll never leave you, Mom," I said through tears. "I promise." She kissed the top of my head. Her arm wrapped around me, but over my shoulder, and I only realized this years later, replaying the memory like a crime scene. Her eyes drifted to the phone propped on the nightstand. Still recording, the red dot still blinking. She held me for another minute. Then she stood, picked up the phone, checked the screen, and slipped it into her pocket like she was saving a receipt. I was 16. I didn't know promises could be weapons. I didn't know she was building an arsenal she'd deploy at my own wedding. The morning of my wedding, I sat in the bridal suite at a country club estate in Fairfield County, Connecticut. The kind of venue where the hedges are sharper than the conversations and every centerpiece has been approved by committee. Bridget Callahan, my maid of honor and the only person on earth who has never once lied to me, was working on the 42 buttons running down my back, narrating each one like she was performing surgery. "Button 19, she said. "Halfway there. You're sweating, by the way." "It's October. It's nerves. Different moisture." My phone buzzed on the vanity. A text from my mother. "Wearing something special today. For you." I held it up for Bridget to see. Maybe she's actually being nice for once. Bridget didn't look up from button 23. "Beth, your mother has never in her life done anything for you. She does things near you, at you, or in spite of you. Never for you." She wasn't wrong. In 28 years, every gift my mother gave me came with a string. Every favor came with a clause. Every act of kindness was a deposit she'd withdraw later, with interest. I set the phone face down, but my fingers stayed tight around it, the way you hold something you're not ready to put down but know you should. 20 minutes later, I stepped into the hallway to find Donna Hale, my mother-in-law, waiting near the staircase. She was in a soft blush dress, a silk scarf draped over one shoulder, the way women of a certain generation in Connecticut do when they want to look effortless, but spent 40 minutes selecting it. Donna was the kind of woman who communicated in textures and silences. The scarf always matched her mood, and her mood was always harder to read than she wanted you to think. She took both my hands. Her grip was warm, firm. "You look beautiful," she said. Then her voice dropped, just a register, the way it did when she was about to say something she'd rehearsed. "Your mother and we've known each other longer than you think." I smiled. "Oh, from the neighborhood, right?" Donna didn't answer. Her eyes dropped to our joined hands. She squeezed once. Then she let go, adjusted her scarf, tugging it tighter, like armor, and walked toward the ceremony without another word. I watched her go. Something shifted in my chest. Not pain, not alarm. Just a door I hadn't known existed, opening the smallest crack. I filed it the way I'd been trained to file things in grad school. Note it, don't react. Revisit later. I had a wedding to walk into. On my way to the garden, I passed the room where the florist was finishing the boutonnieres. The door was open. Two women, friends of my mother's, both in their 60s, both holding champagne they shouldn't have been drinking at 3 in the afternoon, were talking inside. "Christine handled everything," one said. "The venue, the florist, the caterer." "She even picked the DJ," the other replied. "She picked everything." A pause. Then quieter. "Even the groom." They laughed. The easy, conspiratorial laugh of women who think they're joking. I stopped walking. My hand rested on the doorframe for 3 seconds. Then I kept moving. They were joking. They had to be joking. The ceremony started at 4. 300 guests filled the garden chairs, the late afternoon sun warming the rows like a stage light. I could see them all from behind the stone archway. Friends, cousins, co-workers, neighbors. People I'd met once at a charity auction and would never see again. And in the front row, center seat, my mother. She sat beside Donna, legs crossed, chin lifted, wearing head-to-toe ivory. Not cream, not a crew, not champagne. Ivory. The kind that catches October light and practically glows. Under the sun filtering through the glass doors behind her, it looked close enough to white that every woman in the room noticed, and every woman knew exactly what it meant. I walked in on my uncle's arm. The whispers started before I cleared the second row. My mother turned to the guests nearest her and spoke at a volume carefully calibrated to sound private while being audible to a dozen people. "It's just cream, darling." She touched her collar, adjusting it with the precision of someone who'd practiced the gesture. "I think someone's being a little sensitive today." Two things happened inside me simultaneously. Therapist brain. She's testing your public reaction. She needs you to respond emotionally in front of witnesses so she can position you as the unstable one. Human brain. Your mother wore white to your wedding. I let the therapist win. "You look lovely, Mom." My voice didn't shake. I made sure of it. She beamed. She thought she'd won the exchange. In her calculation, my composure was surrender. Behind me, Bridget leaned close to my ear. "That's ivory, Beth. Not cream. I worked bridal retail for 2 summers in college. That fabric is Mikado ivory. She knows exactly what she did." I didn't respond. I kept walking toward Connor. He was standing at the altar, his jaw set, his hands clasped, his eyes locked on mine with an expression I hadn't seen before. Not nervous, not joyful. Alert. Like a man standing between someone he loves and something he can see coming. When I reached him, he gave a single nod. Almost imperceptible. He saw it too. Cocktail hour happened the way cocktail hours do at Connecticut weddings. Champagne, crab cakes, strategic compliments, and conversations that sound warm but measure everything. My mother made the rounds like a woman running for office, touching forearms, laughing a beat too loudly, positioning herself at the center of every cluster. I watched her stop a group near the bar. "I'm just so proud of my girl," she said, pressing one hand to her chest. "Everything I have, my whole world." A woman I didn't recognize dabbed her eye. Then my mother materialized beside me. She never approached, just appeared, the way certain kinds of people enter your space without the courtesy of arrival. "I hope you don't mind," she said, her voice pitched low but angled toward two guests adjusting their cocktail napkins behind us. "But I've arranged a little something for later tonight. A mother's prerogative." She tapped her champagne flute but didn't drink. She never drank at events. It interfered with her precision. "Every mother does this sort of thing," she added. "You'll understand someday." I looked at her. Every fiber of my clinical training was screaming. She's normalizing. She's framing her behavior as universal so that refusing makes you the unreasonable one. "I raised you completely on my own, Bethany." She shifted toward the couple behind us, making sure they heard. "Every single day, every school play, every doctor's appointment, everything." Her eyes glistened. On cue. "Give me 5 minutes tonight. Or are you going to take that away from me too?" Guilt. Her oldest weapon. Sharpened over 22 years to a surgical edge. The couple murmured sympathetically. The woman touched Christine's arm. "Of course she'll let you," the woman said to me, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Do what you need to do, Mom." My voice was even. She touched my arm. "That's my girl." I walked away carrying two things: the knowledge that she had a plan for tonight, and the growing certainty that Connor had one too. I found him behind the bar, near the service entrance. He was standing by the catering door, holding his phone, his jaw doing the thing it does when he's running numbers in his head. "She's going for the mic," I said. "I know." "During the first dance?" "That's when the projector turns on." I stared at him. "What projector?" Connor looked at me. Calm, steady. The expression he wore when a spreadsheet told him something the client didn't want to hear. "I found something, Beth. 6 weeks ago. In old emails. Between your mom and mine." The garden noise faded. Live music, clinking glasses, someone's uncle laughing too loud. All of it receded. "They barely know each other, Connor. That's what they want us to believe." He took my hand. His was warm and dry. Mine was neither. "Your mom and my mom have been in contact for 3 years, since before we met." I felt the door in my chest open wider. "Whatever she does tonight," he said, "don't look at her. Look at the back wall." "What's on the back wall?" "The truth." I stood there for a long moment. The bass from the cocktail set vibrated through the floor. A waiter passed with a tray of shrimp and didn't see us. "Trust me tonight," Connor said. I nodded. My hand was trembling. His wasn't. "If your mother showed up to your wedding in Ivory, in front of 300 people, what would you do? Tell me in the comments." Because what happened next surprised even me. I need to take you back 3 years. Because the story of how I met Connor isn't the story I thought it was. I was 25. I'd just opened my own therapy practice. A tiny office above a dry cleaner in Stamford. 2 secondhand chairs. A desk I'd hauled up the stairs myself. A framed license on the wall that cost me 6 years of school and $140,000 in student loans. I was exhausted. I was proud. I was free. Or I thought I was. My mother called on a Tuesday evening, the way she always did, at the exact moment I was making dinner, because she had a sixth sense for interrupting the moments I felt most independent. "You work too hard," she said. "It's not healthy. Come to dinner Saturday. My friend Pamela is having people over. You need to meet people your own age." I almost said no, but saying no to Christine Booth was never really an option. It just felt like one. The illusion of choice was her finest trick. That Saturday, I drove to a ranch house in Fairfield with white shutters and a wraparound porch crowded with pumpkins. Pamela, a woman I'd met twice at my mother's holiday parties, greeted me at the door with a gin and tonic she'd already poured, as if she'd been expecting me at exactly that minute. Looking back, she had been. Inside, maybe 30 people milled around. Neighbors, teachers, a few couples arguing politely about the election. Nobody I knew. And then Pamela walked me to the kitchen island, where a man was leaning against the counter, holding a beer he wasn't drinking, half listening to someone describe their golf handicap. "Bethany," Pamela said, "this is Connor. He's Donna Hale's son. I think you two would really get along." He turned, and he looked at me the way nobody in my family ever had, like I was already interesting before I opened my mouth. We talked for 2 hours. He asked about my work, not the cocktail party version, but the real questions. What's the hardest session you've ever had? Do you take it home? What made you choose this instead of something easier? I drove home that night and called my mother. I met someone. 3 seconds of silence. I didn't understand those 3 seconds then. I understand them now. She wasn't surprised. She was calculating how long to wait before she started her performance. "Who?" she said finally. She already knew. She'd written the guest list. 6 weeks after that party, I told my mother Connor and I were dating. She set her fork down at dinner. Pot roast, her control meal, the one she made when she needed the house to smell like devotion and taste like obligation. "He seems fine," she said carefully. "But fine men leave, Bethany. Your father seemed fine." She wielded my father's departure the way other people wield knives, quickly, precisely, always at the joint. Every time I moved toward independence, she pressed the blade against the same old scar. He left. They always leave. I'm the only one who stayed. "I gave up everything for you," she said that night, leaning back from the table with the practiced martyrdom of a woman who has memorized her own sacrifice. My career, my social life, my marriage, eventually. And now you're walking away from me for a man you've known 2 months. I left her house that night more determined than ever. Connor was my rebellion, my line in the sand, my proof that I could choose something for myself. I thought I was choosing. I thought the resistance meant it was real. I didn't know she'd written the rebellion too. 18 months before the wedding, Connor proposed. Simple ring, quiet evening, no audience, just us. I called my mother to tell her. She didn't call back for 3 days. When she finally did, her voice was flat. Not angry, not sad, just calibrated. "Fine," she said, "but don't say I didn't warn you." That was it. 2 full years of opposition, the dinners, the guilt, the weaponized ghost of my father. And it ended in a single sentence. I called Bridget. She just stopped fighting. 2 years and then nothing. Bridget was quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that meant she was choosing her words carefully instead of saying the first true thing that came to mind. "That's not how Christine works," she said finally. "Christine doesn't stop. She redirects." I told myself Bridget was being paranoid. My mother had finally accepted my choice. But a therapist should know, when a controlling person suddenly stops controlling, they haven't surrendered. They've arrived at their destination. The opposition was never real. It was navigation. There's something else from that period. A detail I dismissed at the time but can't stop replaying now. About 8 months into dating Connor, my mother dragged me to a charity gala at the Fairfield Women's Club. She did this twice a year. Put on her best dress, work the room, remind everyone she existed. I hated going, but she called it family obligation, which in Christine's vocabulary meant attendance was not optional. We arrived at 7. By 7:15, my mother had found her way to a corner table where a woman in a blue silk jacket was sitting alone, swirling wine. She was elegant and composed, graying at the temples in a way that looked deliberate rather than neglected. It was Donna. I didn't know that then. I'd been dating Connor for 8 months, but hadn't met his mother yet. He described her as complicated and wanted to wait until things were solid, so I didn't recognize the woman at the table. But I noticed how my mother sat down beside her as if she'd been saving the seat. How they leaned together with the ease of people who'd spoken many times before. How my mother touched Donna's arm and Donna laughed. Not the polite laugh of a stranger, but the comfortable laugh of someone who'd heard the setup and still enjoyed the punchline. "Who's that?" I asked when my mother returned to me. "Just a new friend," Christine said. "From a committee I joined." She changed the subject. I let her. I was 25 and still believed my mother had friends instead of strategic alliances. 8 months into my relationship, my mother was already sitting with my future mother-in-law at a charity gala, and I was standing 10 feet away without a clue. I remembered one more thing before we go back to the wedding. 6 months before the ceremony, I helped Donna reorganize her guest bedroom closet. We'd been close by then, or I thought we had. She handed me boxes. I sorted fabrics. We talked about nothing important. In the back of a drawer, I found a handwritten note on cream stationery. The handwriting was my mother's. I'd know it anywhere. That precise Catholic school cursive. "Thank you for keeping your end." "See." "What's this?" I asked. Donna glanced at it. Her face didn't change. "Oh, that old neighborhood thing. Book club dues. You know how your mother is about keeping track." I laughed. I set the note back in the drawer. Book club dues? In my mother's handwriting, with the word end. I didn't think about it again until the night of my wedding, when I understood that end didn't mean a debt. It meant a deal. Back at the wedding, cocktail hour was ending. I stood at the edge of the garden watching my mother and Donna side by side at the head table. My mother had insisted on controlling the seating chart. I want to sit near Connor's family, get to know them. Now I watched their body language the way I'd been trained to watch couples in session. The lean, the rhythm. Christine's hand on Donna's forearm when she laughed. Donna tilting toward my mother with the comfort of someone whose rhythm she'd already internalized. These weren't two women who'd been introduced at an engagement party 18 months ago. Their posture said years. Their coordination. Christine in ivory, Donna in blush. Colors that complemented each other the way only a phone call could arrange. Said planning. Connor appeared beside me. "You see it? Your mom and my mom. The body language. They're not strangers." "No." I watched Christine whisper something. Donna nodded. "When did they actually meet, Connor?" His jaw tightened. "Not when either of them told us." I found Donna near the dessert table adjusting a napkin that didn't need adjusting. "Donna," I said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "How did you and my mother actually meet?" She didn't flinch. "Years of practice." "Oh, through mutual friends. You know how it is around here. Everyone's connected." "Which friends?" A pause. The napkin stopped moving. Honestly, it's been so long. I can't remember the specifics." She couldn't remember. The woman who remembered the exact thread count of every fabric swatch in her house couldn't remember how she met the mother of her son's wife. "That's funny," I said, "because my mother remembers everything." Donna's hand went to her scarf. She tugged it. "Well, you know Christine." Yes, I was beginning to. I walked away without pressing further. In my clinical practice, there's a moment with every client where pushing one more question will make them shut down completely. I'd hit that line. Donna was holding something, and she wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. But I filed the exchange the way I file everything. Note it. Don't react. Revisit. My mother cornered me once more before the first dance. Near the DJ booth, within earshot of two guests rearranging their chairs. "I'll need the microphone for a few minutes during the dance," she said. Just a small moment. Tradition. Tradition, I repeated. Every mother does it. A toast. A memory. Something the guests will remember. She tilted her head, the same tilt she used when she was bargaining. I raised you alone, Bethany. 16 years without a single day off. Give me 5 minutes. She let the silence stretch, because silence was where guilt lived, and guilt was where Christine did her best work. Fine, Mom. She smiled, the smile of a woman who believes she has won the final negotiation. I found Connor. She's taking the mic. Good, he said. The projector's loaded. Before the dance, Christine stopped Connor at the edge of the bar. I was close enough to hear. Take care of her, my mother said, touching his forearm. She needs someone strong. Connor looked at her. She is strong. My mother's smile tightened, just a flicker, just enough for a therapist to see. That's what I'm afraid of. She walked away. Connor watched her go. Then he turned to me, and the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. He had heard what she'd said, and he'd heard what she'd meant. She was afraid of me being strong, because strong meant uncontrollable. Strong meant I might see clearly. Strong meant the cage she'd built might not hold. I touched the pearl earrings I was wearing, my grandmother's. Christine had told me to wear them. They're tradition, she'd said. Your grandmother would have wanted it. At the time, it felt like a sweet request. Now I heard it differently. Even my accessories were curated. Even my ears were hers. I considered taking them off right there. But not yet. Later. When it would mean something. 3 minutes before the dance, I locked myself in the restroom. I stood in front of the mirror, hands trembling, dress perfect. Ring on my finger. The ring Connor chose. Or had he? Had Donna suggested the style? Had my mother described what I'd want? I turned on the faucet. Cold water. Wrists. Counted to 30. I was a licensed clinical social worker. I had spent 5 years sitting across from women who could not see the bars of their own cages. I had helped them map it. The guilt, the obligation, the manufactured dependence, the carefully timed affection that kept them coming back. And I had never mapped my own. You met him at your mother's friend's house, I thought. Your mother's friend. Your mother's guest list. Your mother's timeline. I shut off the water. A phrase from one of my clients came back to me. A woman named Janet who'd sat in my office 6 months ago, shaking, saying, "The scariest part wasn't finding out he'd been lying. It was realizing I'd built my entire identity on the lie. If the lie goes, what's left of me?" I'd told Janet, You're what's left." Now I was Janet, standing in a bathroom at my own wedding, staring at my own face, wondering if the woman who helped other people tear down walls could survive tearing down her own. I'd been teaching clients to face truth for 5 years. Tonight it was my turn. I straightened my back, dried my hands, walked out. I wasn't ready for what was coming. But I was done pretending I didn't need to be. The first dance started at 8:15. The DJ cued the song. Something acoustic, something I'd chosen because it sounded like breathing, and Connor took my hand. 300 people circled us in candlelight. For 30 seconds it was perfect. His hand on my back, my forehead near his chin. The room was warm and gold and still. Then I heard the feedback, that electric whine of a microphone being lifted from its stand. I didn't turn around. Connor's hand pressed firmer against my spine. "Don't look at her." My mother's voice filled the room. "Good evening, everyone." The shuffle of 300 heads turning, forks pausing, phones lifting. "I'm Christine Booth, mother of the bride." She paused, waiting for applause she believed she'd earned. A few guests clapped politely. Most just watched. "I have a surprise tonight," she said. A surprise from the mother of the bride. A click. the hum of a projector warming. And then, on the main wall, the one behind the head table, the one she'd chosen specifically, an image appeared. Me, 16 years old, sitting on my childhood bed, crying into a pillow I still remember the smell of. The video played. My voice, tinny and small through a phone speaker 12 years old. I'll never leave you, Mom. I promise. Christine smiled into the microphone. 300 people watched a mother play her daughter's tears at her own wedding reception. See, she said, she always comes back. Nobody moved, nobody laughed, nobody applauded. 300 people sat in the specific kind of silence that comes when something is wrong, but nobody can name it yet. I stood in the center of the dance floor, 28 years old, watching myself at 16 make a promise that was being cashed in like a check. The video looped. My 16-year-old face, swollen from crying, repeating the words my mother had harvested and stored for 12 years. Around me, I could feel the room recalculating. The woman in ivory who'd gaslit 300 people about her dress color had just played a private video of her teenage daughter crying at her daughter's own wedding. Even the guests who'd defended Christine earlier were shifting in their seats. A man at table 9 leaned toward his wife. Did she really just do that? His wife didn't answer. She didn't need to. Connor squeezed my hand once. Now, he whispered. Look at the back wall. I turned. On the opposite wall, behind the guests, behind the bar, behind everything Christine had arranged, a second projector lit up. Connor had hidden it behind a floral arrangement that morning, angled it before any guest arrived, connected it to his phone through a silent app. The wall filled with text, emails, screenshots, dates, a timeline. At the top, in a font large enough for the back row to read, from Christine Booth to Donna Hale. Subject: I found the perfect girl for your son. The date was 3 years and 2 months ago. 7 months before I walked into Pamela's kitchen and met a man I believed the universe had placed there. Below it, message after message. Christine to Donna. Donna to Christine. Screenshots of texts with timestamps, a schedule, a strategy. 300 heads turned. The whispers started like static. Low, confused, layered. What is that? Are those emails? Christine and Donna? My feet were bolted to the dance floor. My eyes tracked down the timeline the way they tracked session notes, looking for the pattern, the escalation, the point where the narrative breaks. I found it. Email 3. My mother to Pamela, the woman who hosted the party. Invite them both on Saturday? Table them next to each other. Don't mention me. My mother was still holding the microphone on the other wall. Behind her, the video of 16-year-old me was still playing on loop, still crying, still promising. And on this wall, the truth was still scrolling. Christine's hand began to shake. The mic whined. 300 people are watching. Christine is looking at Donna. Do you think Donna is going to protect Christine? Or protect the truth? Drop your prediction below. I'll give my mother this. She recovered fast. 30 years of managing a room had given her reflexes most people don't develop. She forced a laugh, the kind that sounds like air being squeezed out of a balloon. This is a joke, she said into the mic. Connor, sweetheart, turn that off. This is a family celebration, not a... She paused, searching for the word. Not a courtroom, she settled on. She turned to the guests with an expression I'd seen 100 times. The face of a woman who has already decided what the narrative is and expects every person in the room to adopt it. Those are fabricated, she said, pointing at the wall with the hand that wasn't holding the microphone. He doctored them. I've been telling Bethany since the beginning. This man is not who he pretends to be. A few older guests shifted uncomfortably. One man nodded. He'd known Christine for 20 years. Old loyalty dies hard. Read the dates, Mom, I said. She didn't. You told me he wasn't good enough for me, I continued. For 2 years you fought it. Every dinner, every phone call, every guilt trip about Dad leaving. I paused. And then one day you just stopped. I took one step toward her. Now I know why you stopped. You stopped because it worked. I held on tighter. I turned back to the wall. 300 people were already reading, but I read it aloud anyway, because this was my story, and I was going to be the one who told it. Email 1. Christine to Donna, 3 years prior. I've found someone for your son. She's a therapist. She'll be patient. She'll understand boundaries. She won't push back. She doesn't cause trouble. Email 2. Donna to Christine, 4 days later. Tell me more about her. Send her details. Email 3. Christine to Pamela. Invite both of them Saturday. Seat them together. Don't tell either one I'm involved. I stopped reading. Looked at the room. I walked into that kitchen believing in coincidence. I said, I fell in love believing in fate. Neither one was real. There was only my mother's guest list. I scrolled the timeline mentally. The emails continued below, month by month, my mother updating Donna on my emotional state. She's hesitant. Push back harder. Then later, she's committed. Time to ease off. And later still, the ring is picked. Don't let your son propose at a restaurant. She'll say yes faster at home, where she feels safe. My mother had choreographed even the proposal. Not the words, not the love, but the setting, the timing, the conditions under which I was most likely to say yes. I looked at Donna. She sat in the front row, her silk scarf crushed in her fist, her eyes fixed on the hardwood floor as if she could disappear into the grain. My mother's email had described me the way you'd describe a piece of furniture. Patient, won't push back, doesn't cause trouble. She'd listed my qualities like features on a listing, not as a mother describing her daughter, as a seller describing a product. I stood there on that dance floor, somewhere between the girl who cried at 16 and the woman who was refusing to cry now, and waited. Christine, still clutching the mic, scanned the room for an ally. Her eyes landed on the one person she believed would still save her. Donna? Her voice was sharp now, the velvet stripped away. Tell them this is nonsense. Tell them we didn't plan this. We. 1 syllable. 2 letters. I heard it. 300 people heard it. The murmur rose like a wave. She said we. Did she just say, not I, not she? We. 2 mothers. Together. Donna stood. Slowly, the way you stand when your body is heavier than it was a minute ago. The scarf slid off her lap onto the empty chair. She didn't reach for it. She looked at me. Not at Christine. At me. 3 seconds. The longest 3 seconds of my life. She told me. Donna's voice cracked. She swallowed and started again. Christine told me that if I helped her, she would make sure my son married a woman who would never disobey, a woman who would be patient and grateful, and who would stay. She paused. 300 people forgot how to breathe. I agreed, she said. 3 years ago, I agreed to the arrangement. Arrangement, not friendship, not introduction. An arrangement. A contract between 2 mothers who traded their children like assets in a portfolio. But I watched your wife. Donna turned to Connor now. Become the strongest person I have ever known, and I will not let her mother take that from her. The room exhaled in pieces. A gasp near the back. A chair scraping. An older woman at table 12 pressing both hands over her mouth. A man near the bar setting down his drink and not picking it up again. Christine lowered the mic. Her arm dropped like a cut string, but she wasn't finished. Narcissists don't finish on the first fall. They treat every collapse as an intermission. Christine walked toward me. Without the mic now, but loud enough for the front 5 rows to hear every word. Donna doesn't know what she's talking about, she said. She's confused. She's emotional. After everything I did for her family. For her family? I said. I found her son a wife. She stopped. Heard herself. Pivoted. I introduced 2 young people. That's what good mothers do. Then she turned to the room. Arms spread. Voice climbing. She always comes back to me. That video proves it. My own daughter, at 16 years old, promising she would never leave. She meant it. I let her finish. I let every word fill the room and settle. Then, I was 16, Mom. She stopped. I was 16 years old. I was crying over a boy who broke up with me at lunch. And you were holding a camera. I watched the truth land. Not fast. Not dramatic. Slow, the way water moves through a crack in concrete, quiet and irreversible. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Connor stepped forward. He held his phone up, still connected to the second projector, and tapped once. The last slide appeared. Full screen. From Christine Booth to Donna Hale. Subject: I found the perfect girl for your son. And below the subject line, 1 paragraph. Every word visible to 300 people who had stopped pretending to look away. She's a therapist. She'll be patient. She'll be kind. She won't leave. She doesn't know how. She doesn't know how. The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that has weight. She doesn't know how to leave. That's why my mother chose me. Not because I was special. Not because I was enough. Because I was trapped. Because a woman who spent her career teaching others to escape would never recognize the walls of her own cage. A woman at table 5, someone I'd never met, pressed her knuckle to her lips and started crying. She didn't know my story, but she knew this shape. She'd lived inside it. I looked at the email one more time. She doesn't know how. 4 words that explained everything. Why my mother never worried that I'd actually leave Connor. Why she stopped fighting after the proposal. Why she wore ivory to my wedding with the confidence of a woman who believed she'd already won. She picked me because I was the kind of woman who stays in rooms she should leave, who absorbs pain and calls it patience, who mistakes loyalty for love and obligation for belonging. She picked me the way you'd pick a lock, not for what it is, but for what it won't do. My mother stared at the wall. Her words, her email, her syntax, her punctuation, her subject line in the font she used for everything. Hers. Undeniable. The microphone, still on the floor where she'd dropped it, let out one last hum of feedback. Then nothing. Here's what 300 people watched happen next. Christine straightened her ivory dress, smoothing the fabric the way she always smoothed things, as if appearance could survive when substance had already collapsed. Everything I did, she said, to no one and everyone, was because I love her. A mother has the right to protect her child. A mother has the right. I stepped forward. My heels clicked on the hardwood. You didn't choose to protect me, Mom. I pointed at the wall. Slide 3. Connor tapped. It appeared. Christine to Donna. She thinks she chose him. That's the beauty of it. A voice in the back row. Oh my God. Christine spun. Context. You're ripping everything out of context. Donna, tell them. Donna didn't move. Slide 7, Connor said. Donna to Christine. Your daughter came to dinner last Sunday. She's exactly what you described. The arrangement is set. Connor looked at the room. My mother confirmed the arrangement 5 minutes ago. 2 mothers, 1 deal. Trading their children like cards in a game neither of us agreed to play. Donna stood again, tears running now, not wiped away. She turned to Christine with the exhaustion of someone who has carried a lie for 3 years and felt it snap. "It's over, Christine." Then to me, "I'm sorry. I should have told you the day he proposed. I should have told you 3 years ago." I heard her. I didn't absolve her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I heard her. Connor tapped one final time, the last slide, full screen, the email that started everything. "I found the perfect girl for your son. She's a therapist, patient, kind, won't leave. She doesn't know how." 300 people read it. Some mouthed the words. Some shook their heads. Some sat perfectly still. The way you sit when you know you're watching something you'll carry out of this room and never fully put down. My mother looked around. One last sweep. No one met her eyes. A man near the exit stepped to the side. Not blocking, not confronting, just clearing a path. The way you step aside for something you don't want near you anymore. She walked toward the door. Alone. In ivory. I stood in the center of the dance floor. 300 people waited for me to collapse, to scream, to sob. The breakdown they'd been conditioned by movies to expect. I didn't give them one. "You arranged the meeting," I said. My voice carried without a microphone. "You arranged the opposition. You arranged the party at Pamela's house and the 2 years of fighting that made me hold on tighter." I paused. Looked at Connor. "But you didn't arrange what I feel for him. That part was mine." I turned to the room. "And this is the last time you arrange anything in my life." I reached up and unclipped my grandmother's pearl earrings, the ones Christine had told me to wear. I set them on the nearest table. They clicked against the wood like a period at the end of a sentence. Nobody applauded. Nobody needed to. The silence said everything applause couldn't. Christine walked out the door. Nobody followed her. The DJ, bless that kid, faded the music back in. Something soft. Something that gave the room permission to exhale. Connor wrapped his arms around me. Bridget appeared from somewhere and wrapped hers around both of us. For a long moment, the three of us stood in the center of 300 people who were quietly rearranging everything they thought they knew about my family. 30 minutes later, I sat on the balcony. October in Fairfield County. The fairy lights I'd chosen, the ones that made it look like the sky was close enough to touch, swayed in the wind. It was cold enough to feel it in my teeth. Donna came out. She sat beside me without asking. We were quiet for a while. "Why did you agree?" I finally said. She looked at her hands. The hands that had signed the deal, forwarded the email, stayed silent for 3 years. "Because I was afraid Connor would end up with someone who wouldn't understand the weight of family." Christine said she'd found someone good. Patient. Steady. She exhaled. "She was right about who you are. She was wrong about why it mattered. You forwarded the email to Connor 4 months ago. I labeled it 'just in case' for your records. I was too afraid to hand it to him and say, 'Your whole relationship was engineered.' So I hid it inside paperwork and prayed he'd find it. He found it 6 weeks ago." "I know." She looked at me. "When he called and asked to see my old inbox, I gave him access. I didn't fight it. I was tired of the lie. You told the truth tonight." I told the truth 3 years too late. I looked at this woman, complicit for 1,000 days and brave for 5 minutes. And I tried to decide what she was. She wasn't a villain. She wasn't a hero. She was the kind of person who agrees to something wrong because it's easier than fighting someone like Christine Booth, and then spends 3 years hating the part of herself that agreed. "You told me tonight," I said. "That's enough. For now." She reached for my hand. I let her take it. I didn't squeeze back. Connor came out a few minutes later. Leaned against the railing. Quiet. 6 weeks, I said. "You knew for 6 weeks. I almost told you the night I found the email. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open for 2 hours. I had the words ready. Why didn't you? Because if I told you before the wedding, you would have canceled it. And I didn't want her to take that from us, too. He crouched in front of me so we were eye level. I married you knowing everything, Beth. I married you because your mother was right about some things. You are patient. You are kind. You don't walk away easily. He paused. She listed those qualities because she thought they made you controllable. I fell in love with them because they don't. The first tears came. Not the kind that come from breaking, the kind that come from being seen, fully, with all the scaffolding and the cracks and the ugly architecture of how we got here, and being chosen anyway. She chose me for you because I don't know how to leave, I whispered, and I chose you because you don't have to. We sat there for a minute. The fairy lights above us swayed. Inside, someone laughed, a real laugh, not the performative kind. The reception was continuing without us. The world was continuing without us. And for the first time in 3 years, that felt like freedom rather than loss. Do you think it was all fake? I asked. The way we met. The way we fell in love. He thought about it. Not quickly. The way he thinks about everything. Carefully. As if the answer deserves more than reflex. She planted the seed, he said. She picked the soil and the pot and decided where the sunlight would fall. But she didn't make it grow, Beth. That was us. That was real. He paused. A garden doesn't stop being a garden just because someone else built the trellis. I leaned into him. My therapist brain, the one that had been running diagnostics all night, finally went quiet. He stood, held out his hand. We don't have to go back in. I took his hand. Yes, we do. We finish our night. If you've ever had to build your own life because the one someone built for you was a cage, I see you, and I'd love to hear your story. We walked back in. The reception was different. Not quieter, realer. Some guests had left. Most stayed. A few came up and hugged me without words, which was better than anything they could have said. Bridget handed me a glass of water. No champagne, she knew. You okay? No, but I will be. She nodded. That was enough for Bridget. It always had been. I sat near a window and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through 3 years of texts with my mother. I didn't read the words, I watched the rhythm. Every time Connor and I had an argument, within 48 hours my mother texted, "How's Connor?" Every single time. She knew our fight schedule. She knew because Donna reported back. Donna told Christine when we argued, when we made up, when he seemed distant, when I seemed soft. My mother's check-ins weren't instinct. They were surveillance. I closed the messages. I didn't need to read anymore. At 11:15, I sent one text. Don't contact me. When I'm ready, if I'm ever ready, I'll reach out. Not before. I turned off the phone and set it face down on the table. Around 10:30, Bridget sat down across from me. She'd been working the room for the past hour, not socializing, managing, redirecting conversations, intercepting the guests who wanted to gossip, gently steering people toward the bar or the dance floor or the exit. Some of them are going to talk about tonight for years, she said. Let them. A few are already defending your mother, the ones who've known her longest. I know. They'll need time. Or they never will. Bridget reached across the table and took my hand. Not the way Donna had. Tentative. Loaded with guilt. Bridget held it the way you hold something you've been holding for a decade and never planned to let go of. You know what I was thinking about? She said. That night in college when you called me at 2 a.m. because your mother had shown up at your dorm and rearranged your furniture while you were at class. I almost laughed. She said she was making it feel like home. She was marking territory, Beth. She was making sure every room you entered had her fingerprints on it. I looked at Bridget, this woman who had seen my mother clearly from the beginning, who had waited 12 years for me to catch up, who had never once said, "I told you so," even though she'd earned it 1,000 times over. "Thank you," I said, "for never giving up on me seeing it." "I'm an ER nurse," she said. "I'm literally trained to wait for people to wake up." I laughed. My first real laugh since the mic dropped. The last guests left around midnight. The caterers folded the linens. The DJ packed his equipment and, on his way out, stopped to shake Connor's hand without saying a word. I stood in the entrance of the venue. 2 walls, 2 projectors, 2 truths. My mother's video on one. A 16-year-old girl promising to stay. Connor's timeline on the other. The blueprint of a life arranged without consent. Donna stood near the door. New scarf on her shoulder. She didn't approach. She nodded once. I nodded back. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement that she'd chosen the harder thing tonight, and that counted for something. Not everything, but something. We would talk again. In a week, maybe a month. I'd sit across from her at her kitchen table and she'd tell me the rest. The parts she hadn't said tonight. The parts that were too detailed for a room of 300. And I'd listen the way I listen in session, without judgment, without interruption, with the understanding that truth comes in layers and no one peels them all at once. But that was later. Tonight, the acknowledgement was enough. Connor held my coat open. I slipped my arms in and stepped outside into the cold Connecticut air. The October wind carried the smell of fallen leaves and the faint sweetness of the caterer's kitchen closing down. Behind us, the venue glowed, warm, golden, emptying out like a theater after the final act. My mother arranged the meeting. She arranged the opposition. She arranged the party at Pamela's house and the 2 years of fighting that pushed me closer instead of driving me away. But she didn't arrange the way he looks at me when I'm reading on the couch with my feet tucked under the blanket, forgetting the world exists. She didn't arrange the way I chose to stay when staying was hard, when his mother's silence confused me, and my mother's noise exhausted me, and love felt less like a movie and more like showing up on the days when showing up is the only thing you have left. She didn't arrange the love. That part was mine. Some mothers build cages and call them homes. They line the bars with guilt and paint the locks with devotion and tell their daughters the key is obedience. And some daughters spend their entire lives learning how to leave, only to discover that leaving doesn't erase what was real. It means the love was never theirs to arrange. It was mine to begin with. My name is Bethany Booth. I'm 28 years old. And for the first time in my life, every choice I make from here is mine.